Then I want to share with you this poem that I wrote for this occasion. The clouds are heavy, the sky dark. Storm winds rise and rip through the trees. You feel the force of gusts as leaves rip away and scatter. Rain pours down unrelenting while thunder cracks like cannon fire and lightning slices the sky, flashing bright against the darkness like fireworks on the 4th of July. The tree bends beneath the storm's fury, swaying back and forth, never breaking, but certainly straining. And there, in the heart of it all, perched on a trembling limb, is a bright, burnt orange bird. It does not sit untouched or unbothered. Its feathers ruffle violently in the wind. Rain mats its wings, yet still it remains steady, determined, rooted in its place. That bird is the living symbol of resilience. It reminds us that when life storms rage, we too can choose to be steady and calm, not because we're unaffected, but because we refuse to be undone. We will feel the storm, we will get wet, we will face hardship and calamity, but we can endure it. We can rise through it. We can thrive in spite of it. That bird perched in the storm, that bird is you. Yeah, I just wanted to provide that to you, just something that was on my heart, and something that not only was it on my heart, but it's something that I am going to continue to develop and bring it into my soul, into my spirit. So one day I can read it, I can say it without even reading it. And so
I
that
love
is
it.
uh but I am so glad to be in this conversation today with you, Starlight. Y'all, Starlight Monday. Mundy is one of she's we started out in kind of a transactional relationship where I became a client of hers, and that relationship has now blossomed into a friendship between she and my family as relates to business and all things just propping each other up. And Starlight is one of the folks that I interviewed for my book Perched in the Storm, and I invited her into this conversation to talk about uh, when the levee breaks and life after the storm and how we rebuild after the storm. I was watching the other day, I was watching this documentary on Hurricane Katrina. And it was interesting because in the documentary, one of the folks that was affected by the hurricane, they said, we survived the hurricane. That was not the problem. What was the problem is when the levees broke. That was so profound to me when they said when the levees broke, that was their problem. Yeah, we often survive storms, but sometimes there are levees that break. And when those levees break, then that breaks us, that breaks our systems, it breaks our strategy. And then we have to begin to rebuild in the midst of the breaking of the levees. And so that's our conversation today. Starlight is an expert in helping people build systems, to build themselves, build their systems so that they can flourish and function. And I just want to have this conversation with you today, Starlight, just about when the levee breaks and how do we rebuild. Everybody, Starlight Monday. Monday.
Nice to meet everybody here. I'm so delighted to have been invited. Well, I really have to say that from our time working together, your perspective on belonging and how to build that in diverse groups has deeply affected my work ever since and has touched the work of the clients that I've worked with and has become a through line in a lot of the ways that I approach community building and interacting with people online and creating systems that are, at the end of the day, designed to support people while still acknowledging their humanity and leveraging technology to make it easy, but staying human in the process. And so I'm really delighted to be here today and talk about our stories around the lessons and frameworks that you've uncovered in Perched in the Storm.
Yeah, Starlight, I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. This whole thing really kind of when the levees break, Starlight, when it breaks in our leadership, when the levees break in our lives, when we're facing those failures, those setbacks, that crisis, what's the first thing that leaders and entrepreneurs and business people, business leaders, what's the first thing that they overlook from your perspective when the levees break, when we're talking about rebuilding? What's the first thing that they overlook when we're beginning to go through that rebuilding process?
Well, I think what you're really speaking to is a point of resilience, that there are people who bounce back from really difficult situations, and then there are people who carry those difficult situations into their future. And I think it comes down to perhaps how people are raised, perhaps how their mindset has been formed through their life experiences. But there really is something about having a purpose outside yourself that can orient both you and your team to the outcomes, that pulls the drama from this moment and gives everybody a distant point to row the ship in the same direction. One of the people that really influenced my thinking around that was Viktor Frankl and his on meaning. And it's all about how, I mean, he was in a concentration camp as part of World War II and later survived it. But he was in this concentration camp as somebody who was educated as a psychologist. And so he was both able to see and perceive and see what everybody was going through, but also observe his own experience in a way that helped him dissect it as an intellectual and as a scientist who's curious about how human beings think about things. And he realized that the difference of the people who simply survived the Holocaust versus the people who thrived in life after this terrible thing had happened to them were people who had a unwavering sense of purpose. And I find that that unwavering sense of purpose often brings people together despite differences, despite obstacles, despite setbacks, despite this moment of the levee breaking that you're talking about. And when we can hone in on what that common purpose is that's driving everything forward, as a leader, it makes it a lot easier to get everybody on board with the tough work that has to happen next.
No, I mean, my goodness, that is so dope. Y'all, folks listening in the audience, throw something in the chat. Just put it in the chat based on what you just heard. Put it in the chat and let me see what's coming in. I have some thoughts on what she just said, but before I go to my thoughts, I just want to hear from you all in terms of the chat. Put something in the chat, and we're going to look at that. I love it. Let's just see what the audience have for what you just said there. And before we and while we're waiting on folks to put something in the chat, Camille responded to a part of the poem that I did, "Refuse to be undone." Absolutely. And that while we're waiting on folks, that notion of refuse to be undone speaks to this notion of purpose. You know,
Yeah.
when I am activating and moving out of my purpose, no matter when the storm happens, no matter what the storm is, and no matter if my levees break, I have that purpose. And that purpose is something that's going to tell me I'm not going to be undone in this. I'm going to keep forward. I may have to pivot. I may have to change, build, but my purpose is what drives me. My
Yeah.
goodness. Wow, that is so deep.
I
And
think in finding that purpose, I really actually liked the line "refuse to be undone" because it speaks to that mindset part that I end up tapping into even at that like very tippy end of the rope. I'm commonly known to say, like, is this it? Is this going to be the thing that kills me? Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? No, this is not it. And if this isn't it, then the only way through is through. And so there has to be a way and a means and a find and and what is on the other side of this that I'm actually fighting for. I think that's the other thing that people maybe overlook when faced with obstacles is that in a way it's really teaching you who you are in that moment. And sometimes that lesson is a tough lesson to learn. A good one that I run into a lot is needing other people and being a part of community is a human requirement, right? And we can individualism and bootstraps ourselves to death. But at the end of the day, the lesson of you're going to need people can be a really tough lesson if you don't listen the first a bunch of times, right? And then when the levee does finally break and you have no choice but to lean on other people, you suddenly have this understanding about yourself and can accept that part of your identity that is true to you that still relies and counts on other people as part of your survival. And so is that lesson around my identity something that I cling to so tightly that it takes a hurricane to get me to relax? Or is this something that I can hold a loose grip on my perception of myself so that I can quickly assimilate the lessons and I never actually get to the point where there's a levee built against my survival?
You're speaking. Oh my goodness, there are some gems there. Nancy, thank you so much. Nancy says, interesting, recovery from a major tornadoes that recently hit our region has been compared to Katrina. That wasn't on my mind when I registered, but it certainly pops to the top of my mind now. Absolutely, Nancy. That when I and it was Katrina was not on my mind when we started having this conversation, Starlight and I, about planning for this conversation. But after I watched that documentary, it really made a lot of sense, and the title just flowed in. I was like, oh my goodness, this notion of needing other people, right? And interesting enough, and I have to be reminded of that as I share out what resiliency is. Resiliency, yes, it is something that is not something that's innate in us. It's something that we learn through life's challenges and storms.
Yeah.
And it is, in order to be resilient, we have to have other people. We have to lean on other people. We have to recognize that we're not going to get to the storm alone. And we're not alone in the storm. I think oftentimes people believe that when we're in the storm alone. And everybody else is having their own storm moment. It may not be the same storm, but it is a storm. And
Yeah.
so I think that is very profound.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And something else that
Something.
you go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. No, please, you go ahead.
Say that as we think about this, there are a couple of things that comes to light. One, there are 7 behaviors of resilient leadership that I bring forward in the book, right? And learn from
Well,
my conversations with you and conversations with others. And so one of the behaviors of a resilient leader is mindset mastery. And it's interesting because Starlight started out with talking about the mindset. If we're going to rebuild, the thing that leaders tend to overlook is how do we begin to rebuild with the purpose. And rebuilding with the purpose usually comes from our mindset, and having our mindset to say we're going to get through it, we're going to make it, and we're going to make it because of this purpose. Then this whole notion of needing others, service oriented leadership speaks about not me, but we. So when we think about how do we engage and how do we live through when the levees break or when the storm comes, we have to think about it not just, oh, this is only hitting me and affecting me, it's affecting others. And one of the ways that I have found that we get through the storm is when we begin to help others. Helping others a lot of times helps me take the pressure off of me leaning into my own self-pity. So I'm in the
yeah.
storm, but I'm also helping others as well.
Yeah. That was my mom's advice. Uh, Often was when you are at the lowest of your low, find somebody to help because you'll start to realize that your problems have a scope and a boundary that actually feels a lot more attainable to you. She said that you could meet the people that you aspired to be the most or the people that you envied the most and get them all in a circle and have everybody throw their real true problems in the circle. And you could have the life of anybody whose problems you were willing to pick up. You would probably and almost always pick up your own problems and walk away, because when you start to realize just in comparison, we start to go, oh shit, we are all actually going through it. And this actually feels like I think I can know, right? You know what? I think this one, I'm going to stick with this path and what I need to learn here, because that looks like a lot less fun, a lot less fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Starlight, something you just said. I heard. I think I was listening to Bishop T.D. Jakes uh, maybe about a month ago or so, and this is what he said. He said, "If I wanted to destroy you, if I just want to destroy you as a person, if you were my worst enemy and I want to destroy you," he said, "I would give you my success."
Mm-hmm.
And what he was saying was, you would not be able to handle the burden that comes with what you see on the outside. You can't handle what I got to do on the inside. You would much rather keep your life than to have to live in the life and the shoes that I walk in order to do the things I do. That to me was profound, because we look at people's lives and we say, oh my goodness, either, you know, I'm the only one going through it, and what I'm going through is the worst, or we say that person right there is going through it and that person has everything, but not necessarily knowing how we can crumble under the weight of the issues and the challenges and the storms that they've had to get through to get to where they are right now.
One of the things I liked that Tony Robbins said in one of the sessions I watched of his, he talked about how we can blame certain people in our lives for all the difficulty and miserable things and trauma and heavy mark that they left on our life. But if we're going to give them that much credit, that we also have to give them credit for all the good things that we turned out to be in addition, because it can't just be one direction. And so despite the difficulties, obstacles, whatever life seemed to throw at us in our individual, personal version of hell, right? There's still the other side of that, which is whatever that magical combination of torture was exactly what you needed to put you who you are, with the wisdom and understanding and perspective that you are today. And no, nobody wants to trade stories with somebody else, but we also need to appreciate and see and be grateful to the things that were so damaging, that on the flip side, we also can be grateful to them for giving things to us that make us the caliber of people that we are. I just like, it shifted quite a bit of thinking I had around my relationship with my father when I heard that. I was like, oh man, like I can be like, you this, you that. But at the end of the day, I turned out pretty good. So I can't say that you totally blew it. You know what I mean? Like there's a mix. There's a mix.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Robert says in the chat, it says, I am blessed not to be a warrior, but I wonder what those that are predisposed to worry can do to lessen that tendency. So for those that may be predisposed to worrying, what are some tips and strategies, mindsets that can help them lessen that tendency? You have any thoughts there, Starlight?
It's tricky because I don't identify as a worrier either. In fact, I would say that at a really early stage in life, I came to the vision that life is sort of this, my life is meant to be a series of pulling back the layers of the onion. And that kind of sucks because it's onion and it makes your eyes water, but you're getting deeper and deeper into who you are and you're finding a more distilled version of yourself. And life kind of happens in those layers. And how fast or how slow I go through those layers is about how fast or slow I'm comfortable with change and willing to lean into whatever obstacles are holding me in my comfort zone. And I can see the people around me as I am rapidly pulling these layers back and taking on these adventures that make the people in my life worry for me, that it inspires worry in them. And I think my empathy in that moment and my advice to worriers in that context is that the worry that they sense is the natural mind and body's boundary around someone's comfort zone. And it's really easy for human beings to project their comfort zone into other people, right? The way we project all kinds of things. And so we have this comfort zone violation reaction when we see somebody outside of our own comfort zone doing something that feels outside of our comfort zone, and it inspires this sense of anxiety and worry. And every time I felt that anxiety and worry, it feels like I'm walking through a force field that is blocking me between this and this next thing. And I've hit that wall and gone, oh, this is worry, or oh, this is scary, or oh, this is hard, and backed away from it and stayed where I am. And I've pushed through it, and it turns out it's only 3 inches thick, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that in people, in seeing their worry, can see their worry as an object that's doing its job, keeping you safe, keeping you comfortable, keeping you with what you know. Your entire chemical mechanism is an alert system for, is everything okay? Yes or no. Is everything okay? Yes or no. Is your temperature too high? Yes or no. Your body's just going yes or no all the time. And it's not looking for yeses, it's looking for no. And so in our mindset and in our approach, we understand that our mind is looking for and we can go, is that my comfort zone speaking? Or is this actually my intuition speaking? Is this genuinely unsafe for me? And often I think we mistake worry for intuition. And I've got it fine-tuned so that when I push up against the edge of it, it feels like a force field. And I go, yeah. And I push 3 inches through. And sure enough, it's just the edges of my immediate field, right? I know that's kind of like an esoteric way of looking at it, but that's how I kind of visualize the energy of worry when I see it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And that was a very profound way of looking at it. Um, a lot of times what we worry about and another word that I'm going to bring in here is fear. So what we worry about or what we're fearful of is really I don't want to say a figment of our imagination, but it happens within our imagination. What we begin to imagine when there's something that we don't know, when we don't know the future. And worry comes from not knowing the future. And I think that since we're not able to tell the future, we're worried about the future. We're worried about that future outcome. And so therefore, we will let that worry take over versus saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to work on the things that I can control, and there are some things that I cannot control. And as long as I just focus on the things that I control, what's going to be is what's going to be. And I'm going to have to deal with whatever it is on that other side anyway. Either I'm going to worry about it in my mind, or I'm going to go ahead and take steps right now in the reality and move forward. But I'm going to face it. And so I think that it's really about how do we wrap ourselves within that context of purpose and in the context of, and I like what Camille says, we are grace for our own assignment. So when we have that purpose, and I believe that connects into our own assignment, that kind of lessens the worry a little bit, right? I've been, and I'm gonna say something else just from my vantage point. The storms that I've been through, like when I first started out on my own, and before going out into my own, I was worried. I was afraid. Will I have the money? Will I be successful? Will I fail? And y'all, everything that I worried about came to pass. I failed. I I had a car repoed. I didn't have enough money. But you know what? I did it scared. When you do it scared, when you just go out there and you just do it, you will experience that first time, that first setback, but then you begin to get calluses on your body and your soul where now you're stronger. And I did a little research about resiliency as it relates to nature and very specifically trees. I didn't know this. Trees need the wind in order for them to grow. If trees do not have the wind pushes the trees and pulls the trees, and the trees, as they're pushed and pulled by the wind, that wind helps the trees to begin to develop what they call resistant wood. And that resistant wood helps the trees to become more resistant to the wind, to nature, and it's something that needs to happen. If you understand anything, if you heard about the biosphere 2, Earth is biosphere 1, and in biosphere 2, a simulated atmosphere that looks at that simulates what Earth is about, and they had trees inside of this big old dome. They were growing trees. The trees grew big, but they did not grow strong. And the reason they did not grow strong is because inside the dome there was absent wind, and so the trees grew big, and then they fell at their own weight. And so what we have to understand is that when we think about worrying, and we're thinking about our assignment, we need stress. We need the storm in order to make us stronger. And so let's not be worried about the storm. Let's really embrace it. And sometimes it's hard to embrace it when you're going through it. And so, Robert, I don't think that we're answering your question, because I don't know if we have any good strategies for you, except for that mindset to say that we need the storm in order to get stronger.
I think the same idea that you're talking about with the trees, so I have a little bit of permaculture background, and I've watched a farmer come in and grab a tree by the neck in his greenhouse and give it a shake and give it a shake down the row. And initially you're like, oh, it's terrible. And no, actually it's giving trees that resistance to outside forces that actually makes them strong before they're put out into the storm where they have to really encounter it. And I think that's that element of like, the lesson's going to come for you one way or the other. And this desire to peel back the layers of the onion and to push through it, it's still an onion at the end of the day. It still requires a lot of buffeting to gain strength. If that's it, and every human story comes from some crux of the moment that created human transformation. And human transformation continues to be how we cultivate and develop bigger, badder, better, stronger versions of ourselves. Then the storm is going to come, and it's in my best interest to figure out. I love your vision of the storm. I often think about a similar metaphor where it's like I'm falling off a cliff into an abyss, and there's like the realization and tying, oh shit, and grabbing at things and scraping myself on the way down. And I think I romanticized it when I was younger, like, the darkness, life is so hard. There's poetry down here, though. To in my becoming a grown woman and realizing that you can't let yourself go splat with every obstacle that throws you off the edge. And that actually my ability to find or construct a trampoline before I hit the bottom is something that, well, no, there's cliffs everywhere. Like, we're going to fall off the cliff. The question is, are you just going to go splat? Or are you going to go and steer over to the thing where you think you could actually get a bounce back up out of this into the next version of yourself? Because I have yet to hear anybody's story where they don't go, shit, fucked. But then I figured it out, and now I'm here to share it with you, right?
Yeah.
And so here we are. Let's do it then. Let's do it. Let's go. Yeah. Let's take on whatever the challenge is.
Because we got stronger. We got stronger when we hit that storm, when we hit that road.
Let me ask this question. Required.
Yeah. It's required. Absolutely. The storm is required. And I think if you take nothing else from our conversation today, that is one of the key points, is that the storm is required. Starlight, when the levee breaks and when we have to rebuild, what are in your mind, what are some tips that people can begin to engage with themselves and with their team? 3 or 4 tangible things that people can do to rebuild when the levee breaks.
I think people often get really distracted by the what's happening right now versus where we want this to land, right? Kind of back to that trampoline idea of like, you're falling into the abyss, but you have some control of where you land and how we bounce back out. Which means that, which is also kind of tasty, because in the world where people are experiencing failure in a major way, often depression is associated with that. And we're looking to find ways to energetically lift the burden. That talking about the shitstorm that's happening right now isn't a great way to get lifted out of the shitstorm that's happening right now. And for people who are depressed, a really great thing to talk to them about is plans you guys want to do in the future. Listen, I know you're not feeling great right now, but by next summer, maybe we're going to be out. We're going to be on the beaches. We're going to swing through Magnet, right? And you build ideas of a future that give them something to want to work towards. In a work environment, it's about asking, where do we want this ship to land when this storm is over? And can we all agree that that's the same place? And when you give people an opportunity to go, we don't have to figure it out. but where do we want to go when this is over? That allows people to see where they want to go, reorient, and then actually makes it a lot easier to begin solving and taking steps out of this scenario. Because if the steps are escape this, and then what, right? And that can feel really defeatist in a team environment, right? Where it's just like, yeah, okay, somebody messed up and now everything's trash and we got to get out of it. That is not inspiring. That does not bring us all together to solve this task in teamwork. That's very individualistic, right? And so we're looking for something that brings everybody together. Okay, again, what is that next step? Because then it also allows us to say, what if that next step was totally possible? Well, if it was, then that would mean, which could lead to, and that opening the door with the question, what if, or how might we, doesn't require somebody to have the right answers. It kind of allows us for this divergent thinking that allows people to come up with this space that puts them in an imaginative and creative mindset in the first place. And from there, it's so much easier to look back at an obstacle and solve it, right? I think I see this a lot with clients where they'll begin building something and it ends up kind of getting Frankenstein to the point at which it's so duct taped together that they don't want to make the necessary changes to it that are required because it took so much just every day to keep this thing in alignment. And the idea that we have to like not just keep pushing through on something that's not working, and that we can set it down and go, what if, and how might we achieve this thing over here? They suddenly see the path is a lot cleaner. They see the outcome that they want to get to, and suddenly it feels a lot more possible because we haven't filled it with implementation obstacles and, oh God, it won't work. And we're not critiquing brainstorming. It's really just saying, let's be divergent in how we problem solve this. And then when they can see a path of how we get out of this, not just get out of this, but get to where we want to go, it's a lot easier to let go of the duct tape Frankenstein everybody's been trying to keep alive, right?
Absolutely. And I really appreciate that notion of what if. Uh, I look at it like this in two things. I say to myself, I won't be here this time next year. Right. And so that's kind of a mantra. So wherever I am, when I'm going through that storm, I'll say, I will not be here this time next year. So that's future state. So I'm thinking about the future
Yeah.
year. So right now I'm in the moment right now, but I have to think about next year because again, and it sounds like we're coming back to the same thing, which is mindset, which is purpose. When I have that purpose, even though I'm going through my storm, when I have that purpose and I'm looking into the future, that's going to give me that energy and that motivation to continue to take that first step and then to take that next step, then to take that next step because I have a future purpose. And then I think also what I'm hearing in terms of that question of what if, it comes back to this notion of mindset, which speaks to I can't do it versus how can I?
Right. How might we? Yeah.
How am I? So when we think
Yeah.
about we that right there helps us to begin to be more innovative and more imaginative. And so now we're opening our minds up and we're saying, okay, we can think about there's a possibility. So how do we do it versus I can't do it.
Yeah. I feel like it's subconsciously jangling the keys at the baby, at the part of us who's just mad and upset that things aren't going our way, to say, how might we? Because otherwise baby's going to say, no, I wanted it this way and I didn't get it. And oh, and I'm mad at it. Everything's crap. And we go, keys, and going, how might we, makes the baby look at the keys and forget that we're so stuck in this moment, and actually allows um our id reaction to release its fingers a little bit and go with okay, and let our emotions settle a little bit and put our mind into opportunity seeking, which is completely different than bemoaning and looking for reasons that this should never have happened and it's not my fault, right?
Yeah.
Which in all
Yeah.
reality is 100% true for many, many things.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't have happened. Probably not your fault. Doesn't change the fact that we've got, at some point we've got to cling the baby and get it to calm down enough so that we can start looking for solutions and find a path out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go into our chat just for a second. Go here. I'm seeing this kind of popping up. Uh, Nancy says, love that insight that our body nervous system is actually looking for the no. So Nancy loves that insight that you stated in our earlier conversation. Jess says, going back to your earlier point, being connected and leaning on your community helps deflate worry. Talking to one mentor or colleague about what's going on can often lessen the feeling of worry and move you from being stuck and into action. Love it. And then Camille says, great point, Jess. Camille says she needs a starlight pep start every day. Camille, let me tell you, I get the starlight talk once in a while, and sometimes Starlight Will get up off your ass and oh, I'd be like, oh,
Put in the reps.
Robert says, and this is going back to what I was talking about. I will not be in this place next year. It sounded ominous when you said,
Yeah.
that sounded fatalistic. Thank you, Robert. Jess says, I love, and look, and Robert, yeah, Robert's a great friend of mine. And so he puts a laughing face right there. We'll laugh about that at lunch or dinner next time we meet. Jess says, I love that point, Will. A dear friend of mine who recently survived cancer shared with me, I'm not where I want to be, but I look how far I've come in the past 2 years. So holding on to and honoring the growth, even if it falls short. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Jess. And I'll tell you something. You bring up health. A lot of times when I speak a lot of times about going through the storm. Personal storms, financial storms, and we also have health storms. And when
Oh
you're going
man.
that health storm, that mindset, that positive mindset, that trying to make it to lessen the burden off of me and beginning to engage with others helps us get through those health storms as well. I remember when I was 16, I had an operation on both of my ankles at the same time. 16-year-old, uh, and this was during summer. And so imagine being 16-year-old in the heat of summer, in the beginning of summer. You want to get out there, you want to play, you want to engage with your friends, and you got two casts on all the way up to your knees because you had major surgery on your ankles. And I tell you, that was perhaps one of the most depressing times that I've had in my life around my health, right? Dealing with my health. And what got me through it though were my friends. They were like, because I could walk, it hurt to walk. They made the cast such that they were kind of boots. And so I could walk a little bit more like a penguin than anything else. But my friends rallied around me, my community rallied around me, and they said, Will, look, you can't ride your bike, but we got a moped that we're really not supposed to have. But we're gonna put you on the back of this moped, and we're gonna take you around. And when I couldn't play basketball, was not a good basketball player anyway. What they did do is they threw me the basketball, and they when I tried to throw it up to get a hoop, they would catch it and make sure it went in. They gave me the points. And so it was always thinking about our community as we go through even those health situations, but having that positive mindset is extremely key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I spend a lot of time focused on leverages that are like drivers of human change because I work in the expert space and I kind of bridge this gap between thought leadership and technology systems that get results. I'm looking for this place where the things that accelerate humans' ability to get results find ways to be systemized. And because so many of the people I work with are coaches or leaders or facilitators who are literally facilitating change, I'm looking for mechanisms that they can use in their way to get better results as well. And one of the key drivers is this person's ability to see themselves in this new identity, right? To just stop going, I wish I was an artist, I wish I was an artist, I wish I was an artist, to I am an artist, becomes this incredibly transformative mindset shift that when you can get them to say it and hear it and feel that it's true, that their path to being a successful artist is suddenly a path that is open to them in ways that they were going to struggle before. And I'm always looking for, like, you know, there's people who want to get to this destination. I draw this a lot, so I'm just going to draw it real quick. We all have somewhere tasty that we want to go, right? We start here on this journey. We hear about other people going to this lovely place and we want to get there. Early on in our journey, we make choices that are inevitably super impactful to whether our journey takes the green line on our path or it takes the red line. And usually those decisions are made very early on in this point in period of time, right? Mm-hmm. And so I like looking at that space and going, when somebody encounters something, when they're in this moment of opportunity to take a new path, how can I ensure that I nudge them on the path that keeps them on the bridge and leads them to results, versus allow them to fall prey to the most human things about us and fall off the journey? And so there's a lot of small levers in that area, but one of them is just simply being able to see yourself in the role of which that you're trying to aspire to be, and claim it in a way that, like, people still have difficulty explaining without sounding a little bit woo about it, right? Because it's that impactful. And so I like looking for levers in that moment where there's something that you can make permanent change in just a small way in somebody's life. I don't know if there are other things like that you've run into, maybe. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I really appreciate it. Let me go back. Robert says, look at that. Starlight is an artist.
I am an artist.
What I love about what you just shared, Starlight, is this notion of identity. When we're thinking about being resilient people and leaders, we have to see ourselves as resilient. Right? We have to see ourselves as an identity. As I was writing this book, after I finished writing my first book, I shared with people, I was like, I am, they were like, oh my goodness, you're an artist, you're a writer. I said, no, I am an author, but I'm not a writer. Writing is not my expertise. I know how to write. Now with ChatGPT, I can write even better. But
brazen claim. I said a brazen claim.
Absolutely. But I've taken on the identity. I've accepted the identity of being an author.
Yeah.
And I tell you, when I've accepted that identity of being an author, that really allowed me a degree of freedom to speak my mind, to speak what's on my heart, to share, to now begin to share my thought capital out with people. And I'm seeing a third book, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm an author, right? And I see the first time writing the first book, I did not see myself as an author. Although I was a published author, I didn't see myself. Now I'm beginning to see myself more as of an author. I'm taking on that identity. I'm owning that identity. And therefore, I see more books coming out of me. And let me just take a pause right now. This is not a commercial break, but this is an inspiration break. Everybody, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter how old or young you are, you have a book inside of you. You have one book, at least one book inside of you. And it is your responsibility to bring that book to life, to manifest that book. Because if you do not manifest that book, you're being selfish. And this is why you're being selfish. You're being selfish because the world needs to hear your perspective. Everybody has a book, everybody has a perspective, and we need to hear your perspective. Go write your book. All right, Starlight, back from the commercial.
Listen, you told me about how you took on this identity of the author and how it's changed how you perceive your future, but I want to know how it's changed what you've seen change about your life right now as a result.
Yeah, oh my goodness. First of all, every time that I talk about either projects, the first book or this book, I am learning so much about myself, but I'm also learning from others. And so the change that is happening is that um, my world is beginning to open up broader.
Mm.
I'm being exposed to more ideas and connecting with people in ways that I wouldn't have connected with if I didn't have centerpiece to talk around, if you will. Um, Also, my confidence has 10x. I I am my handwriting is not great at all. And so if I was to write you a handwritten letter, you wouldn't be able to read it. And I did not command the spoken English language as I should. So even now, I could have a verb misplacement. The adjective doesn't connect in with the subject and all that good stuff. So growing up, I grew up with these insecurities of writing, insecurities of speaking. And now that I am an author, I still have some of those same insecurities, but they're lessened. They have lessened the more that I have leaned into just doing it scared, doing it knowing that I have some fragility, knowing it that I have some deficit points because I'm not perfect. I give myself grace. So I think the biggest thing is giving myself grace and just doing it. I will always we will always have people who will doubt us, and that's okay. But I believe what we need to do is we just need to go and just do it.
I want to reflect back to you that when I've been given the opportunity to talk about who you are, I've always seen you as an incredibly intellectual with profound wisdom to share, who is a writer and a speaker. And it's novel to me to hear you speak about acquiring this identity that feels new to you, or that you're leaning into the honesty of it. And yet it's crazy because it's felt like you've always been that person to me. And I
Wow.
think tying back to the framework of Perched in the Storm and this idea that you need other people, that it's not always needing other people to remind us that we want to keep our own problems, but it's also finding other people to give us outside perspective on the lens that can be a little mirrored on the inside from looking outward, right? And we can get a little lost in our own sauce. And it's not just having people to remind you that it's okay and you can make it through this, because we've all made it through tough stuff. But it's also somebody who goes, are you freaking kidding me? You've always been that person. Like, welcome to you. Do you know? And that it's good to
Absolutely.
have both locked in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I am humbled by that. Thank you so much, Starlight, for that. And Robert, even if you have a pamphlet inside of you, man, I'm keep on talking about it, man. When we go to breakfast, write your pamphlet, and I'm gonna talk to Drew about writing a book. And
Listen, I felt like you were speaking right at me. I feel like you were speaking right at me. The other thing is too, is in watching you do the growing effort around promoting and putting yourself out there and getting attention for this project that you're putting into the world. It's also been a reminder and an inspiration to me to go, listen, I know I got one book. Is that it? Like, I got a litany of them. And it's just been this
absolutely.
thing of like, write a book, write a book, write a book, write a book. So I felt like you were subtweeting me while you were looking me right in the face.
Right in the face. Absolutely. No, I love it. And we all do. We all have a book inside of us, at least one, if not multiple books. Hey,
Yeah.
folks in the chat, throw something in the chat. Actually, come off camera if you don't mind. Let's have some conversation. We have like 6 minutes left. If you want to come off mute on the camera and your sound mute, let's all just be in community with each other, or put something in the chat, something that you're taking away from our conversation. Throw something in the chat and come off the camera. Hey, Robert, good to see you, my friend. Um, Come off the chat. Hey, Camille, how are you? Good to see you again. Absolutely. Come off the chat. I see you, John. Hey, Nancy. All right, all right. Yes. So let me ask a question, and you can put it in the chat, or you could just kind of speak it out in the atmosphere. What's been the most what has most resonated with you during this conversation? what's the thing that has resonated the most with you during this conversation? Let me phrase it that way. And you can come off chat, or you can put it in you can come off mute, or you can put it in the chat. What's been the thing that's resonated the most with you in this conversation? And while they're putting stuff in the chat or thinking about it, Starlight, let me just say, again, being your friend and being connected to you, and the articles that you send me, hey, do this. This is what you need to look at. Hey, how about this? You cannot imagine how impactful that is, and how that's been for me growing as a leader and as an entrepreneur. And so I just want to say thank you for all of your encouragement
Oh,
as
thank you.
in this space.
It's such an honor to hear. But again, I've always looked back at our time working together as something that brought belonging from the perception of this is just something that I believe in my heart and care about, to I'm actively finding ways to make inroads with my clients and how they implement their work to cultivate belonging in all of these areas that I'm working in, just as a result of getting to understand your thinking and how you build the impact and results that you do. I'm so delighted. Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah,
Thank
you the
you.
best. You
I
the best.
appreciate it. Liz, I think Liz, were you it looked like that you want to come into the conversation, or did I misunderstand you coming off mute?
I came off mute because you told me to. Um, and I'm a rule follower, not. But I had no idea really what I was signing up for when I joined this session. I just love Starlight and figured if she was doing something, it was worth it. What I've been thinking as you're talking is that I'm not in any big storm right now, but looking at some of the big storms that I have been through for sure at other points in time reminds me that I have the capacity to be doing more than I am doing right now when the waters are pretty calm. So it's kind of a kick in the butt. So and I appreciate that.
No, thank you, Liz. That is a great reminder. I remember at a time when I was fired from my job, and I was all in this self-pity space, and I went to my pastor, and he said, Will, right now you need to be accountable for the time that you have. And so one day you're going to go back into the workforce, but right now you have some time. So what are you going to do with that time? And so that I really appreciate that, Liz, that right now when the waters are low, and the clouds are sunny, there are no clouds in the sky, what is he going to do now? And so I really appreciate that. I also want to say this also, and before we get into someone else, the notion that being perched in the storm is only for adults. That is not it. Everybody, no matter your age, young people can live through. Young people have adversity. Teens have adversity. College folks have adversity. I got some kids in my house right now that are dealing with their own sets of adverse issues, and they have to learn how to be resilient. And so I think that as we think about resiliency is something that life is our teacher when it comes to resiliency. Life is the classroom, and it is our teacher. And all of us, no matter where we are, no matter how old we are. I remember when I was on the stage, I used to dance. I used to be a part of a dance group when I was younger. Think New Edition, if you will.
Hell yeah.
We didn't
It's
have
so cool, Will.
Now, if we had a singer in our group, I probably wouldn't be here with you today. I would probably be on tour somewhere, but we had this dance group back in the 90s, right? Y'all, Will, I can't even see you dancing. I can't. I can't now, but I could back in the day. But anyway, so I was in this dance group, and we, at 18 years old, we practiced. Our dance group was more like our sports. It was more like our sports team. That's how committed we were. In 1989, we lost a dance competition, one of the major dance competitions in our city. I mean, it was an embarrassment. And then we had to work through that embarrassment, that disappointment, that failure. And then the year The following year, we won. We're 18 years old. And so when we're talking about storms and facing storms, 54 like me, understand work and face through a storm, you can experience that at 18, 16, 10, if you will, beginning to learn that sense of resiliency. Camille says, do it scared, even with our insecurities. Jump off the cliff. Oh, and write that freaking book. Maggie says, working with colleagues, college students, it's important that they understand the storms help build resiliency and helps makes us stronger. They also need to understand the importance of community, their village, to get them through and having a mastery mindset. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we have, it's 1:30, and I don't want to keep you beyond your time. I always want to end things on time. If there's anybody that like to say one last thing, please do so and put in the chat function, what are you walking away with? What right now, you don't have to, you kind of put in there some of the stuff that some of your feedback, but what are you walking away with? You know, one word that describes what you're leaving with, your feelings, your emotions. Throw that in the chat function. One word that describes your feelings, your emotions, what you're walking away with. It could be a word, it could be a metaphor. There we go. Jess says grounded and inspired. Robert says inspired. Maggie says encouraged. Camille says motivated. John says calm. I love that, calm. Absolutely, absolutely. Appreciate you. Thank you all for participating in this conversation. Starlight, bottled lightning. That's what Starlight is. Bottled lightning. She has taken lightning and put it in a bottle. Y'all, how can we do that? You a bad person. We can take that. And that's exactly what Starlight has done. She is a friend. She is not an expert. She is a mastermind. When you work with her, she's a master class in how to get systems working for you, so you can automate and you can be great at what you do. Starlight, thank you so much for your time and this conversation, your friendship. Y'all, when you pick up Perched in the Storm, you will find in the chapter that says Storm Chasers, you're going to find a conversation with me and Starlight inside of that book. And so if you want more of this conversation with me and Starlight, pick up the book. Y'all like how I did that, how I wove in a plug?
I loved it. I loved it. I also loved that I made the chapter Storm Chaser because that's just so core to my identity. I love it. When I saw the Perched in the Storm and the lightning on your site, I was like, this is perfect. I love it. Yeah. I do not feel the storm. Makes me stronger.
Makes you stronger. Absolutely. Folks, thank you so much. Hope that you all had a good time. Talk to you very soon. Take care.
Pleasure to know all of you. Thank you so much, Will.
No, stay on just for 1 second, Starlight. Let me.
Oh, no problem. Hang on, I gotta yell at my dog.